There are two teams in the NHL right now who haven't made the playoffs in quite a while and are finally taking the next step, pushing for a spot this year, and very much transitioning out of their rebuild. These two teams are, of course, the Buffalo Sabres and the Detroit Red Wings, and they happen to be in the same division and have the exact same amount of points. Both of these teams appear to have an outside shot at a wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference, but even more importantly, both of these teams have extremely bright futures. Loads of young stars and general managers and coaches that are making good decisions for the betterment of their respective franchises, which should have them battling it out near the top of the Atlantic Division very soon. So which of these young up-and-coming teams actually has the brighter future? Let's find out. We're going to be comparing these two squads based on four main categories, including offensive talent, defense, goaltending, and coaching and management. Starting it off with offense, these teams each clearly have more than a few stars and top prospects in their systems. When you look first at Buffalo, they have a very clear 1-2 punch at center with 25-year-old Tage Thompson and 22-year-old Dylan Cousins. Detroit, on the other hand, has a 26-year-old Dylan Larkin, who's a very consistent and capable top-line center, but he isn't currently signed to a long-term deal, and there are no guarantees that he will sign with the Wings, although in my opinion, I think they will find a way to get him locked up. I think the guy that they're likely banking on being their future number 2 down the middle is 18-year-old Marco Kasper, who they just drafted 8th overall in 2022. He's having an excellent season for Rogla of the SHL, could end up being exactly what they're looking for. When it comes to wingers, both of these squads are pretty loaded. Buffalo's Alex Tuch is still just 26 and having a career year. They also have Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka, both just 21 years old and providing lots of energy in their first full NHL seasons. Peyton Krebs is also just 22 years old and has been a solid contributor at times for the Sabres. When you look at Detroit now, you have your top-line wing, 20-year-old Lucas Raymond, who I believe has superstar potential and is coming off of an excellent rookie season. You also have 22-year-old Jonathan Berggren, who's been making the most of his NHL opportunity and looks like he belongs. In addition, they have 21-year-old Elmer Soderblom, who's a bit of a wild card but does have some solid potential. And then you have some big question marks in Jacob Vrana, the 26-year-old, who when he's playing is extremely effective and a great player. Unfortunately, he spent some time in the NHL's player assistance program this year, so hopefully he's okay and can get back to enjoying the game of hockey soon. 23-year-old Philip Zadina is also a question mark for Detroit, seeing as he went from a 6th overall pick in 2018 with loads of potential to a depth forward in the Wings lineup who has struggled to produce. In the system, the Sabres have some really solid offensive prospects as well, like Noah Östlund, the 18-year-old currently playing for Djurgården in Sweden. Also Matthew Savoy, their 9th overall pick in the 2022 draft, and Yuri Kulik and Isaac Rosen, both very young guys developing in the American Hockey League this year. And for the Wings, besides Marco Kasper in the system, some notable guys include Kroos Hannes, the 21-year-old winger playing for Grand Rapids this season, Carter Mazur, the 20-year-old wing playing in college for the University of Denver, and also Theodor Niederbach, the 20-year-old wing playing in Sweden for Modo currently. Now, although both the Wings and Sabres have some serious studs for the future, I have to give the slight offensive talent advantage to the Buffalo Sabres. Mainly because I like their center depth a little more, because they don't have as many question mark type players or prospects as the Wings do. Taking a look at the defensive side of things for both teams, first off, the Buffalo Sabres have some of the best top-end young defensemen in the game, including, of course, Rasmus Dahlin, who's having a Norris caliber season at the moment. You also have the first overall pick from 2021, 20-year-old Owen Power, who's in his first full NHL season and developing nicely. In addition, they have 22-year-old shutdown guy Matthias Samuelsson, and then 23-year-old Henri Jokiharju. For Detroit, they also have some big-time young defensemen, including 21-year-old and last year's Calder Trophy winner Moritz Seider, who's just an excellent all-around player. Then you have 25-year-old two-way guy Filip Hronek, who's having a really nice season. And then also 24-year-old Gustav Lindstrom and 26-year-old Jake Wallman, who's trying hard to make Detroit his permanent home. In the system on defense, the Sabres don't have a ton of guys. The main notable one in my opinion being 21-year-old Ryan Johnson, who is currently playing for the University of Minnesota. The Wings, however, have some pretty solid guys. Most notably 20-year-old Simon Edvinsson, who is a 6th overall pick in 2021 and currently playing for Grand Rapids of the AHL. Also, William Linder, the 20-year-old, also playing for Rogla in the SHL right now. Albert Johansson is another guy that could make an impact at some point in the Red Wings lineup. Although both teams have top-tier guys, I think the team with more young depth on defense has to be the Red Wings. So I'd give them this slight edge with regards to defense. Moving on to goaltending, we have some interesting guys to look at for both franchises. First off, currently in the NHL for Buffalo, you have 23-year-old Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. The Finnish netminder has had an up-and-down start to his pro career. He's shown flashes of ability to be a really good goalie, but hasn't been consistent enough to prove he'll be the number one guy of the future. In Detroit, they brought over 28-year-old from the St. Louis Blues, Ville Husso. Husso is definitely good enough to be a starter in the NHL, but he's not necessarily a star either. Goalies in the system are where it starts to get very interesting. The Sabres have Devin Levi, one of the best college goalie prospects we've seen in quite a while. A guy who I think is arguably the best goalie prospect in the NHL. He still has to sign with Buffalo, which is a little bit of a question mark, but I believe he will and will likely be their guy in net within the next couple seasons. For the Red Wings, they have a 20-year-old netminder in Sebastian Cossa, who they took 15th overall in 2021. And after a stellar career in junior, he has struggled at the pro level thus far, currently playing in the East Coast League. He's still very young and could still pan out to be a really good goalie, but it makes you wonder if they made a mistake not taking Jesper Wallstedt, who was taken 5 picks later in the same draft, and so far looks like the much better prospect. With this being said, I give the goaltending advantage to Buffalo, because I believe Devin Levi is going to be a stud. And now for the last category, we have coaching and management. Although both franchises have really good people on the coaching and management side, they are kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum. Buffalo has Don Granato as their head coach and Kevin Adams as the general manager, and while both have done a great job so far in their time in Buffalo, they don't have near the experience or credibility that the guys in Detroit have. Derek Lalonde is in his first year as an NHL head coach, but he was an assistant with the Tampa Bay Lightning from 2018 to 2022, winning 2 Stanley Cups with the team. He knows what it takes to win and what it looks like. Steve Yzerman, the current GM of the Wings, was the GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning for quite a few years until he stepped down in 2018. But a lot of the core players that will go on to win cups happen to be a lot of the players he drafted for the Lightning while he was the GM. Because of all this, I have to give the coaching and management edge to the Detroit Red Wings. So after taking a look at all of this, which of these young teams has the brighter future? While these franchises are extremely close and this could be a tie, I'm going to say by a narrow margin it's the Buffalo Sabres. Looking up and down this organization, there really aren't many weaknesses I can see, so I have to go with Buffalo. I do look forward to watching these teams continue to grow and maybe develop a new rivalry in the NHL, seeing as these teams never really were rivals because the Wings used to be a Western Conference team. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Make your case for which team has the brighter future, and thank you guys so much for watching.